Hey folks, JodoCast again, and this time coming to you from a brand new modding area in the new house. Set up a new modding station, whatever you want to call it. Managed to get a different camera set up and what have you. So this is the little GoPro style camera that I can use to do these aerial assembly and disassembly shots, as well as being able to film with my camera, and then we might be able to edit it together and get a little bit more finished end result. So you probably guessed what this video is going to be about. A lot of you that know me will know that I'm a Star Wars nut, fan, whatever you want to call it. The Star Wars blasters, of course, are going to be high on my hit list, and this time we thought we'd have a look at the Han Solo blaster, the DL44 Nerf version, and got some big plans for this one. Want to do some cosmetic mods and performance mods, try and make it a little bit more screen accurate, as well as increase the performance as much as we possibly can. In order to find out what sort of performance increase we've been able to make, we're going to need to do some FPS testing with it in its stock standard form. So without any further ado, we will set the chronometer up and we'll put some rounds over the chronie with the blaster in its standard form, using some just standard elite darts, brand new standard elite darts. See what sort of FPS it's doing in its stock standard form, and then we'll go about our modifications, see what we can do to try and greatly improve the FPS. Then we'll have a look at the cosmetic mods as well, after we've worked out what we're doing with the performance side of things, and come back and show you the end result and chrono test it again and see what sort of gains we've been able to make. Alright folks, so bear with us 1 second, we'll set the chronometer up and we'll see what she does in the standard form. Alright, so what I'm going to do is put 4 of the darts that come with the blaster, the Star Wars darts, put those across the chronometer first, and then 4 elite darts, and we'll see if there's any difference and what the average FPS is. So these are the Star Wars darts. So they're the Star Wars darts that come with it. Doing it in sets of 4 because there's a 4 dart internal mag, so that sort of makes more sense to do it in lots of 4. Let me just see if I can get a better focus here. Alright, now these are standard elite darts. And I'll put 1 more elite dart through, so we've got 4 of each. Try again. Oh, that was really crap. Okay. Alright, so we'll work out the average from the 8 darts and we'll put that on screen just here. And now we'll go about having a look and seeing what sort of modifications we can make and how much we can improve the FPS. Alright, first things first, let's get about taking the blaster apart and have a look at the internals. Front muzzle barrel piece comes out pretty easily. Oh, look at that. Comes apart as well. get that last little screw out. There it is. So there's all our screws. Okay, yeah, so there's a nut there to make the slide captive. So you can undo that little screw. That'll let you take it off completely, which we might do for the sake of the exercise. There we go. And because I actually want to take this scope off and move it over if possible. So, right now, what we got here? It's your spring, which is this funky tapered business that they were talking about, that I've heard about. So, okay, so that's your magazine section, easily slipped out of the way. Usual scenario. Probably just drill that straight out. Let's have a look at our brass. Now, as my subscribers will know, I haven't actually played with brass before, so this will be my first attempts at brass. Not being overly familiar with it. It will be, if I can use the right sizes, a new experience for me. So this is the combination I want to use. So that as the barrel, this would go back into your plunger, which is not far off fitting. Just a little bit of a remount, and I can actually get the brass back into there. Okay. So first things first, we need to drill this out. So we need to get a drill bit. Okay. Hold this with. High speed mode. So low pressure, high speed. And drop through the first part quite nicely. Persevering with the drill from the bum end one, see how we go. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, this is the first time my first attempt at brassing anything. So I'll run you through what I've done, or what I've been able to find out so far. I've put a little bit of tape underneath the O-ring seal there, because I found that it basically wasn't getting compression until it got to like the last probably inch of the plunger tube. Now it gets compression from the very start of the slot there, so and yet still makes it full travel just under air pressure. What I've done is I have cut the air restrictor out of the, what do you call that, breech, and I have used sandpaper on the end of a drill bit to remount the inside of it so that it will accept my brass. Now I'm not sure which size is which. the smallest size, the second smallest size. This is the third smallest size, fourth. This is the largest one, whichever it is. So yeah. So I really should learn the sizes. But anyway, so the darts fit relatively loosely in this one. They drop in, whereas the one that's going to receive into that, the darts have quite a tight fit into that, which is this one here. So the darts are a tight fit into that one. As you can see, they don't want to just slide in. You have to actually sort of push them in. So, all right. So that's going to be my main barrel. This piece here. That's the outer. So this is a little bit similar to an angel breech, I think they call it, where I've got two smaller sections, one of the same as the barrel size and one of the size smaller. They'll nest inside each other and go inside this tube here to stop the dart from pushing too far back. They'll leave a little bit of the head and a little bit of the start of the dart exposed, so that when it accepts into the front barrel, there's the dart has already started into the front barrel, so that when the air is compressed behind it, it should shoot down that front barrel without too much drag resistance, whatever. So that's the plan. So what I need to do is glue this one inside that one, then glue the both inside the main tube here at the right length, so that the dart protrudes that sort of half and half, half head, half dart. And then that will insert into the breech like so. That squeezes back to where the air restrictor seating was, and then this will slide like that. Okay, so that's your brass breech, and then that will slide over your brass receiver, give you an airtight seal. You've got a better seal on your plunger head. The seal on the plunger tube to the receiver is quite good, so that's all right. And with the spring, I'll have to work out what I'm going to do with that. I'm thinking, I don't know whether it's going to be replaceable or not. I think we might have to maybe just look at maybe stretching that one a little bit, and hopefully with a better air delivery system, it will give us significant gains anyway. So what I might do is assemble the performance components and give it a test run to make sure it's going to work how I hope it's going to work, and then we will then look at doing we'll disassemble again and look at doing the cosmetic mods. Alright, so I'll start assembling some bits and pieces, and I'll be back shortly to show you what we've done. Okay, so as part of the cosmetic mods of the DL44 build that I'm doing, when you look at the scope's centrally mounted on the slide. You've got these pretty basic sort of crappy details here. When you look at the reference pictures that I've got of the real DL44 hand solo blaster, the scope's actually mounted off to one side and significantly lower than what it is here, etc. So what I decided to do was take the scope off the top, and 3D printed some greeblies and whatever to go on the side here to move that scope across and mount it off to one side. So the first thing I did was went in with a Stanley knife, or whatever you want to call these, box cutter, whatever, and just basically scored along the edge where the scope meets the slide, and I scored all the way around the inside and outside on both sides, and then fatigued it until the scope actually snapped away. So then the scope is basically detached, leaving this slot in the middle. Now what I've basically done with that is just cleaned it up a bit, given it a sand, and I've glued on one side just a piece of clear thin plastic on the inside there, which I'm going to use some putty to build that up, and then I'll sand it and shape it so that it matches and blends back in. Now, and yes, where was I? Oh yeah, so I'll build that up and then shape it so that it matches, blends in with the rest of it, to hide that section where I've cut it out. Now, the scope is then left with this bottom section with a little slot through the middle of it. So, and you've now essentially got this scope detached. So what I've gone and done is designed and 3D printed these parts here. So you've got like 3 greeblies and the support bar. Now the bottom of the support bar has got a couple of recesses in it, and basically the design of that is to fit over these existing little greeblies that are sort of on there, and it gives you that raised bar. Now you've got a front and rear greebly that fit into those slots there, and then there's this main greebly fits through the center one here, pushes all the way through, snug fit, and then that one will fit into the center there. Okay, obviously these will have to be glued into place, and that now gives you an offset scope mount, and the scope will mount on here. This is very difficult one-handed. Okay, that's probably not going to stay there, but yeah, but then the scope will mount on there. As you can see, it's a fairly good blend, just a little bit of a putty and what have you, and then that will should blend in there quite nicely. And God, I wish I could actually get that to stay there. Let me see if I can hold this. Hang on one second. Okay, that's about the best I can get, just propping it up with a roll of duct tape. But you get the idea. You've got the new 3-dimensional greebly, and it when you look at the whole thing, it brings the scope across to one side. As you can see, it brings the scope across to one side and drops it down so that it's not sitting up proud on top of it. It's actually sort of more associated to being lower on the slide, and yet the slide will still slide independently, free of it, and won't interfere with it. It's very close, but doesn't interfere, so you'd have to grip your slide from back here either side with your thumb and forefinger when priming the blaster. Alright, so there you go, that's my little hand solo scope relocation kit, we'll call it. So alright, I'm going to press on with the rest of the build. Let's see, that's out of the way, get those off. Working on sanding back the Star Wars logo. I'm not overly concerned about that though, because it's going to be hidden behind those greeblies and what have you, so once it's all painted up you're not going to see it. I've taken all the writing and whatever off the other side there, so that's all sanded smooth and blended in to get rid of the edges and the writing. I've just got to get rid of it off the slide here. The handles, I've had a bit of a play with those. I've been trying to get sort of a dark sort of woody sort of look to them, but it's quite difficult. But I think once the black's on there, they'll stand out as being brown, even though they are a dark brown, but still like a walnutty colour. But anyway, I'll press on, and I'll come back and show you as we make some advances. Alright, so the DL44 blaster is now completed. As you can see, I've used the relocation kit for the scope to put it on the side there and drop it down a little bit so it overlaps the edge of the blaster a bit. I've given it a bit of a paint job with like a satin black, given the handles a run over with it's called mocha, but with a little bit of a black dry brushing through it to give it a bit of a timbery sort of look. Done the muzzle flash hider, I guess you'd call it, in a silver, and given it some sort of sooting, like a bit of exhausting, where your laser blasting would have exhausted through it. So just giving the knurling on the scope a bit of a touch up and whatever to sort of show the knurling on the scope adjustment a little bit. So that's the overall look of the blaster now that it's completed. Heavy did mention about he removed the tack rail off the bottom here on his. I've left it on because the blaster is so long in this dimension here. Giving it a little bit of extra depth there, I feel sort of makes it not look quite so long, so it sort of proportions it a little better. So there we go. That's the blaster finished. That's as you can see, you've got the offset of the scope to the one side now. There's the paint job and detailing on the other side. That bit of sooting on the muzzle section, what have you. So that's the blaster in its painted up form. So yeah, look, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I think it looks pretty authentic, like a decent sort of a prop. And now to show you what I did internally. Now, spring-wise, I couldn't seem to find or think of a spring that would work better than the original one that was in there because of the tapered setup of the spring. I know Drac has actually modified the Ray Blaster, which is very similar, uses the same plunger mechanism, etc. And with his, he used a retaliator spring and squished the end of it down a little bit so it wouldn't interfere with the trigger mechanism and what have you, which worked for him. In having a look at it and testing the spring, I didn't see that it had any more compression than what the original one did. So what I actually did do was I gave the original spring a bit of a stretch in both of its sections, in the tapered section and in the non-tapered section, to try and give it a little bit more length and hopefully ultimately a little bit more oomph. Now, the other thing I did with this one was it is my first attempt with brass barreling. So I actually put a brass breech, a brass breech in this. So there's I sleeved the plunger tube, or the main breech, with brass tubing, and then I put a short stub in the front here, which is the tight fit for the darts, whichever it is. And I 3D printed you can see the brass through there. 3D printed a spacer to fit in there to hold that brass section perfectly in the middle there. So look, there you go. If you look straight down the barrel there, you can actually see the plunger head. So there you go. So yeah, so I'll open up the breech and show you just exactly what it looks like. If you bear with me 1 second. Okay, so there's the stub in the front there. Now I've sort of scalloped it down, further back at the front, so that it will accommodate the darts as they feed up from the magazine, but it's a little longer on the top so that it will sort of the half pipey type idea of sliding into the brass section in the back there that receives the darts. So the internal magazine still works fine. As the darts slide forward into the smaller, tighter section at the front there, they have a little meet with some resistance, which pushes them back into the main breech. And then because of the airtight seal, they get forced through that short stub at the front there. And it gives you, it's pretty damn close to an airtight, like perfect airtight seal. If I stick my finger in it and pull the trigger, it takes quite a while for the air to decompress and come out, which it does sort of squeeze out around the edges of my fingers. So yeah, it seems to work all right. So what we'll do is we'll load it up and we'll put a few shots over the chronometer, set the chronometer up and put some shots over the chronometer and see what sort of, oh yeah, as you can see there, the slide slides back, leaving the scope in place. So the slide's actually separate from the scope now. So and then it's got a nice pop to it because of the brass, obviously. So yeah, look, we'll set up the cronny, we'll pop it over the cronny with some I lost one of the damn original darts, so we'll use the 3 original Star Wars darts and see what reading we get from them, and then we'll use 4 of the just standard Elite darts, and we'll see what sort of FPS we get from it now. We'll compare that back to the original FPS readings and see what sort of improvement we've been able to make. Alright, I'll set up the chronic, we'll be back in a sec. Alright, so the first 3 darts I'm going to put through it are the original Star Wars darts. So we'll give them a try and see how they shoot. One. 73. 67. 66. Alright, and now I'll try some Elite darts. Okay. Four. That's a little better. One. 64. 62. 69.78. 83.29. Alright, so there's the FPS readings for the modified Han Solo DL44 blaster. I'll put the average FPS down the bottom right hand side of the screen just here. And if we compare that with the original average FPS up the top here, you can see below the blaster there an average FPS improvement of the figure below the blaster just here. Alright, so I think there's been a reasonable sort of an increase in its performance. Definitely looks more the part, looks more like a movie prop replica than just a Nerf blaster. So look, that's my rendition of the Nerf Han Solo DL44. I hope you like it. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next mod. Cheers.